Looking ahead.
So this one I'm quite excited about. I actually added a comment to the section of our collaborative workbook saying, yes, Barry, because I'm really happy he added this. And this is in the last couple of weeks, Apple have released their new 2020 iPad Pro. Obviously, we always like looking out for these new flagship devices. The timing is obviously interesting. We spoke about Apple and how they're planning to roll out their new devices over this next year, really, especially with the climate at hand. But they decided to push ahead and actually roll this one out. And obviously, the iPad Pro has been one of those sections of the lineup that has been so niche, so specialized for those pro users. A lot of people saying they don't even know who those kinds of users are. I myself have a very old 9.7-inch iPad Pro, and I just haven't been able to justify in the last 3 or 4 years making that upgrade, which is really, really interesting. Some of the new features, they now support cursors. This kind of hints a bit of a move. They've also added a new accessory, really, where you're able to have a trackpad and a keyboard that integrate kind of wirelessly with this device, and that definitely shifts into a interesting direction. And obviously, new cameras, like we said, Barry. That's the only thing companies seem to throw at new devices these days is new cameras, and this LiDAR camera. Which seems to do a bit of 3D mapping around a room. Obviously really cool for those kinds of AR sort of implications. Certainly interior designers going to be happy to see those kinds of features. But for you and me, Barry, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's the big debate, right? Is these features feel a bit gimmicky? It doesn't feel like there's anything that's that new on these devices. They are still very impressive, and they are still the best tablets on the market by a long way. They are incredible feats of computing. But like you say, the use case is difficult to understand, right? This tablet market really struggles because it was designed to be in between your laptop and your phone, and designed to fill some of those use cases. But the phones have got so good these days that a lot of the things you used to want to do on a tablet, you can just do on your big smartphone anyway, and they become so big they're almost tablets themselves if you look at the plus versions and whatnot. And so the tablet kind of falls in that limbo area, and the use cases are hard to understand. One of the big things that Apple is trying to do is trying to convince you that the tablet can replace your laptop. And that's the big debate, right? Is can you use an iPad Pro now with its cursor support, its keyboard, its trackpad? Can you use it as your primary workstation? And there's a lot of people who think you can. I think if you're a user that doesn't use much graphics or doesn't do like fancy things, that you mostly use email and kind of word processing and those sorts of things, the iPad is perfect because it's very, very portable, it's incredibly impressive, it's very, very fast, and it's got the kind of technology inside of it that can really rival, say, a MacBook Air or kind of those products. But if you're doing anything more serious, if you're doing serious spreadsheets, if you're doing serious video editing, if you're doing serious graphic design, etc., maybe a laptop is still needed. And that means the iPad Pro is a very impressive device, but it's hard to recommend because unless you have a very specific use case, like you say, interior design, or if you're drawing or those kinds of things, if you don't have a very specific use case, it's hard to justify this very expensive product.
Absolutely. It's like you said, all about that use case. What are the main apps that you're using? And I think this is where this platform gets limited, is the apps that it allows. So if we look at something like I would do, for example, video editing, there is one application there that is seen to be a fairly good one. It only costs, as far as I understand, £20. And so I've got that video editing software. It's called LumaFusion, but it does still have its limitations. And I suppose that's always the thing here is, does the software that you have access to on these smaller devices limit you in any way? And so if extra features get added, then 100% maybe that is a viable solution. But for the moment, I still think laptops are going to be where we're going to be sticking for some time. The thing is, though, I kind of don't think Apple would want to, sort of shove us out of the Apple MacBook Pros as well. They kind of want us to have all devices. And so this is the interesting thing, is how they sell it to us. What is this device going to actually service? What need is it going to service? And how is it going to fit into our life? Don't you find that quite an interesting place that they've put themselves in?
Yeah, definitely. It definitely is interesting. I think that this idea of cannibalizing your own products is a difficult one within big corporations, but it's something Apple's done well in the past. If you think about the iPod range, which has been completely cannibalized by the iPhone,
Yeah.
they were able to make that transition. They were able to stay with the times and not keep like selling iPods until the cows came home, because the iPhones all of a sudden took over from that.
Yeah.
And so they have been able to show in the past, albeit under Steve Jobs' leadership, but they have been able to show in the past that ability to recognize where the world is going and cannibalize their own products to get there. So whether the tablets are ever going to get to that stage, I'm a bit skeptical. I can't see a future where the tablet is the main computing device right now. Maybe there are improvements in the future that really like change that. But at the moment, like you say, it kind of feels awkward in that limbo period. And I think that's why they're able to release it under these constrained conditions. Because I don't think they're
Yep.
selling the amount of iPads they would be selling iPhones
Yeah.
or MacBooks, right?
True.
And so I think it's a safe product to launch in this kind of period, with Chinese factories slowly starting to come back online, and that they're obviously confident they can guarantee whatever demand they're going to have for this new iPad. But I agree with you. I think it's at the moment it's to show Apple are still innovating. It's to show they keep releasing products. I don't know how many people are going to upgrade. I think people, if you got money to blow, then sure. If you've got an old iPad and you're looking for a new one, then it makes sense to go for the newest one. But it's hard to tell someone who bought an iPad in say 2018 that this is worth the money, unless you have a very specific use case for it.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, just to stress then again that the hardware on these things is powerful. The hardware on these things is more powerful on the new iPad than a lot of laptops that are being used. But for me, it's that limitation that they've placed themselves on the software, which is fascinating. I could easily see my laptop at the moment is just set up on a little stand in a vertical fashion. Screen is closed. It's just plugged into a screen and some external peripherals. I could clearly see that use case being on the new iPad. It's got a USB-C port, which you can plug a hub into and all these extra accessories and peripherals, but it's a software. And I think that's where we're going to need to see some innovation for these devices to be utilized in the best way that they can be. Let's move on to our next segment.
Pond across the pond.